We have been naming things for thousands of years. Animals, plants, rivers, gods. But somehow, one of the most feared creatures on the planet got a name that nobody can fully explain. The word shark appears in English almost out of nowhere in the 1560s, and linguists have been arguing about it ever since. To understand why the word shark is such a mystery, you have to picture the world it arrived in. The 1560s in England was a period of explosive maritime expansion. English sailors were pushing further into the Atlantic, making contact with the Caribbean, trading with German merchants, encountering indigenous peoples of Mesoamerica. Language, in that era, did not travel through dictionaries. It traveled through sailors, dock workers, and merchants who picked up words the same way you pick up a souvenir, loosely, imprecisely, and sometimes without knowing exactly where it came from. Words entered English from a dozen directions at once. Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, German, and indigenous American languages were all feeding into the vocabulary of a nation that was, almost accidentally, becoming a seafaring empire. In that chaotic linguistic environment, a new word for a terrifying fish could arrive on any ship, from any port, in the mouth of any sailor who had seen something that needed a name. That is the world shark was born into, if born is even the right word. It may have been borrowed, stolen, or reinvented. We genuinely do not know. Origin story. 3 Mintards, the earliest known appearance of the word shark in written English comes from 1569, when a group of sailors working under the command of John Hawkins, the English privateer and slave trader, returned to London with a large sea creature and put it on public display. A pamphlet from that display used the word to describe the animal, making it one of the first recorded uses of the term in the English language. The word was not explained, not translated, not flagged as foreign. It appeared as though the sailors expected people to already know what it meant, or at least to accept it without question. That is the first clue something unusual is happening. New words, when borrowed from foreign languages, are often introduced with a little scaffolding, the Portuguese call it, or a creature the natives name. This word arrived naked. No attribution, no origin note, just shark. Now here's where things get genuinely contested. There are 3 main camps of explanation, and none of them has won the argument. The first theory connects shark to the Mayan word zoc, pronounced roughly like shoke, or shock, which was used in the Yucatan Peninsula to refer to a large fish, and possibly specifically to a shark. English and Spanish sailors had been making contact with Mesoamerican coastal peoples since the early 1500s. It is entirely plausible that a word from the Yucatan coast traveled through Spanish-speaking intermediaries and arrived in English ports by the 1560s. The linguist and historian Samuel Eliot Morison explored this kind of transatlantic vocabulary transfer extensively in his work on early European exploration of the Americas. And the phonetic journey from XOC to shark is not unreasonable if you account for Spanish pronunciation patterns in the middle. The second theory is Germanic. The German word Schurke means villain, scoundrel, or rogue, someone dangerous and untrustworthy. The theory suggests that English sailors interacting heavily with German and Low German-speaking merchants through the Hanseatic trade network adapted this word as slang for the dangerous fish. It is a semantic leap, but not a wild one. We do the same thing today when we call a predatory businessman a shark. The connection between moral danger and physical danger is intuitive. The problem is there is no documented bridge, no letter, no ship log, no merchant record that shows Schurke being applied to a fish before the English word appears. The third possibility is that the word emerged from English itself, perhaps from obscure dialect terms or slang that simply were not written down before the 1560s. English vocabulary is full of words that existed in spoken form for decades or centuries before anyone thought to record them. The absence of earlier written evidence does not prove the word did not exist. It might mean working-class sailors used it for years before it reached the kind of document that survives. What makes this genuinely unsolvable, at least for now, is that all 3 explanations are plausible. None can be proven, and none can be ruled out. The linguist and etymologist Michael Quinion, who spent considerable time investigating the word's history, concluded that shark sits in a category of English words where the honest answer is simply, we do not know. The misconception, 90s. The misconception people often carry about etymology is that every word has a clean traceable family tree, that if you dig far enough you'll find the original speaker, the original moment, the original meaning. That is how etymology works most of the time. You trace a word back through Middle English, Old English, Proto-Germanic, Proto-Indo-European, and eventually you hit bedrock. But shark refuses to cooperate. Some popular sources confidently state that shark comes from the Mayan exoc, treating it as a settled fact. Others cite the German Schurke with equal confidence. Both of these are theories, not conclusions. The honest position which mainstream academic etymology has held for a long time is that the origin is unknown. The Oxford English Dictionary, which is about as authoritative as it gets, marks the word's origin as obscure. What is not a misconception is the timeline. The sudden appearance of the word in the 1560s without prior documentation in English is real. Something linguistically significant happened in that decade. A word arrived, or emerged, or crystallized, and we missed recording exactly how. Modern echoes, 90s. The word shark has migrated so far from its original meaning that we barely notice how strange that migration is. A loan shark charges predatory interest. A pool shark hustles unsuspecting players. A card shark wins through skill that borders on deception. In legal and financial context, calling someone a shark is not a compliment. It describes someone who moves through their environment with cold efficiency, taking what they need and leaving damage behind. This metaphorical use probably solidified in the 18th and 19th centuries as the word became more common in everyday English. But it also echoes the possible German Schurke connection in an interesting way. If that theory is correct, the word may have started as a description of dangerous human behavior before it was applied to a fish, and then circled back to human behavior again centuries later. The shark as villain may be the original meaning reasserting itself across time. Deeper connections. Too many person, shark, is not alone in this kind of etymological fog. Several English words for marine creatures arrived through the same chaotic period of oceanic expansion and carry similarly murky origins. The word barracuda is of uncertain Caribbean or Spanish origin. Manatee comes from a Carib word, but its exact root into English is debated. The sea was, linguistically speaking, a place where normal rules did not fully apply. What connects these words is the conditions that produced them. When English speakers encountered things that had no English name, they did what humans always do. They reached for the nearest available sound, borrowed it, reshaped it, and moved on. Documentation was an afterthought. These sailors were not linguists. They were people doing dangerous work in unfamiliar places, and the words they brought home carry the roughness of that experience. The deeper cultural impact of shark is also worth sitting with. The word does not just name a fish, it encodes a whole set of human attitudes about nature, danger, and predation. It became one of the most emotionally loaded animal names in the English language long before the film Jaws made it iconic in 1975. The word was already doing heavy psychological work. It already meant something beyond taxonomy, and the fact that we cannot agree where it came from somehow makes it more fitting. The ocean keeps its